What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Final Fantasy Entertainment and Podcast Network, Final Fan TV. I am the warrior of hype, and joined with me is the Fire Fighter. What's up, Vinny?
Nothing much, man. I'm excited to talk about this being like a blend of my two favorite franchises.
Yes, and dude, and honestly, I kind of want to talk about it as well because as it is a blend of we can call it maybe a Soulsborne mixed with Final Fantasy,
Yeah.
and we are guilty of this. I will admit that we have a whole video on how Soulsborne plus Final Fantasy equals paradise. But I have to go back on that. I have to kind of take a step back after playing the demo again, and address that for anybody who's on the fence and says, man, Soulsborne games are just not for me. I want to speak to you guys directly because you may be on the fence and just like, I can't do it. This is really not a Soulsborne in a way. It is definitely heavily influenced by the genre
Mm.
Soulsborne, that Dark Souls started, and Neo adopted. Now, Neo
Mm.
is Team Ninja's like Souls inspired game, and Neo definitely has its own unique DNA injected into it. It's very action oriented, but it still maintains that hardcore gameplay. Now, Final Fantasy Stranger of Paradise gives you options. And you have options to go for this hardcore, uh, you know, hard mode is basically is its closest to Neo Souls style gameplay that you can get. Um, it is difficult, but I would say that it's not on the level of Souls. Now, if you want to go even a step below that, and we're going to talk about difficulty levels later, actually, we're going to get into that. But there is options for you that make it feel like this is just another combat system for a modern Final Fantasy. Like
Mm.
this is, you could think of it like Final Fantasy VII remake, right? It's not your traditional Final Fantasy combat system, but there's influences of Final Fantasy in there, and then it's very comparable, more so to Final Fantasy VII remake than it is to a Souls game.
Mhm.
That's my opinion, Vinny. I'm not sure if you like. Are you like agreeing with that or?
No, I would completely agree because like how Final Fantasy VII Remake has like the attack bar. I would say that for Stranger of Paradise, your attack bar and how you manage your more powerful skills is all done through MP,
Yeah,
which there's ways you can regenerate it. There's skills you can use. There's skills that you can unlock in your job tree to increase how much MP you regenerate during battle. So
yeah,
now you've had more experience playing as the mage, and it
that's right.
seems like the mage has something where it's like MP is restored over time, or something as to where I played the pugilist and I didn't have that available to me, so I was more managing my skills and having to do more of the soul shard guarding to get my MP up and everything
Yeah,
like that. But I feel like
yeah,
the MP is more of what constitutes like there's no stamina bar, but you do have a break gauge, and the your break gauge basically determines how long you can use that soul block for, and if you're if you're getting hit, your break gauge is going to go down, so you have to manage that instead of
yeah.
manage
As you're guarding, it's like it's gonna slowly drain. Like as you can hold down the soul guard, and as you do that, it slowly drains that break gauge. It's basically your stagger meter.
Mhm.
Like in essence, for anybody who looking at like Final Fantasy VII remake, it's basically your very own stagger meter. And once that depletes, you get hit, dude. You have to fall down, and you takes you a little bit of time to get back up, which leaves you open for
Mhm.
like some attacks and stuff. Yeah,
Yep, and then along with that there's also skills that the pugilist has where it's your break gauge fills faster after getting broken, so
hmm,
uh there's just a lot of customizing and for like different play styles, but I feel like the MP is really what you're managing in this.
hmm.
Instead of managing an attack bar, you're really managing more just MP. and there's ways to raise your max MP past what you are initially given, and then it could be taken away from you. So
Mhm.
there's it has its own feel that way instead of Final Fantasy Remake where you have the attack bar gauge that you're managing, or in Neo or Dark Souls, you're managing your stamina bar. So it does kind of have its own unique blend of just another bar that you need to manage.
Yeah, like so there, and like I see Black Sheep in the chat. Thanks so much for being here, watching it live. Um, he said it was a little overwhelming with the combo editing and stuff like that. Didn't really fully understand it, and I gotta admit, jumping into it and the tutorial, I'm like, okay, you're throwing a lot at me right now. I'm not sure, but that I almost feel like I got the same thing with Final Fantasy VII Remake. When I jumped into the combat at E3, I'm just sitting there like trying to enjoy the game, but I'm also just getting wrecked because I have no idea how to properly play the combat. And it took a little bit of time to fully digest that what it was trying to get me to do. And this one, even
So
more so, there are more mechanics in Stranger of Paradise that you kind of have to like pay attention to. You have your, like you said, you have your what did I call it? The stagger. What is it called?
the break gauge.
The break gauge. You have your break gauge. You have your MP gauge. You have your health bar. You have your teammates to worry about, and you can tell them to go full force. You can So there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and you can swap between your job classes, and each job class has a different like feel to the gameplay. So um, I guess before we jump into the gameplay and all of this stuff, I definitely want to dive into that. Are going to do our full review of the demo. I just really wanted to start the show off by addressing the Dark Souls comparisons that
Mhm.
ourselves have made, and I just kind of want to make sure that you guys, if you're on the fence about it, please don't think of this as a Soulsborne style game. There are options that you can turn it on to make it feel like this is just another combat system for Final
Mhm.
Fantasy, a modern Final Fantasy game. There are a lot of mechanics to it, and it takes a little bit of time getting used to, but I think once you do, it is very, as Vinny said earlier before the show, it's very fluid. Like, it feels
Mhm.
good. Of course, we played on hard mode, but we can also attest for the lesser difficulties. We're going to get into that in just a moment, but what I want to do to kind of kick this show off is to start off with everything you need to know about Stranger of Paradise, and that includes, well, I mean, hey, when can you play it? This is a good question, because you would think it's a dumb question. You're like, hey, it releases on the 18th. No, you can actually play the demo right now, and that gives you the first 3 missions of the game. And all of your progress that you complete in the demo will carry over into the full game on the 18th? No. If you pre-order the game on console, you can play 72 hours early, which gives you access on March 15th at midnight local time. If you pre-order on PC through the Epic Game Store, which it is exclusive to, that is 24 hours, which means on March 17th at midnight, you will be able to play local time. Now, the game officially releases on March 18th. So if all of that is kind of calculating, if you don't pre-order it, you can get it on March 18th and start playing. If you do pre-order, there are pre-order bonus items such as the Braveheart weapon and the Lustrous shield. You also get an original PS4 theme if you're playing on the PS4. And for customer, I'm sorry. And then also, if you do the digital deluxe edition, you get obviously the game. You get season pass plus additional missions such as the Trials of the Dragon King, which we are excited about because that kind of follows along with the original Final Fantasy 1 if it is what we're thinking it is. The Wanderer of the Rift and A Different Future. So these titles of DLC sound really intriguing. A digital art book and a digital mini soundtrack. Also, you can get an exclusive Steelbook edition at Best Buy. if you're in the States. At least I'm not sure. It is exclusive to certain retailers wherever you are, so make sure you keep an eye out if you're interested in the physical edition. And yeah, so that's basically everything you need to know about when you can play the game. And then I like to read a word from the producer when the game was announced to kind of get the juices flowing here, Vinny. All right, this is from the producer Tetsuya Nomura. And we all know who Tetsuya Nomura is, right? The initial concept for Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin came up around the time following the release of Dissidia Duodecim. That was back on the PSP. So this idea's been floating around in his head for a while. Back to the quote. I was thinking to myself, making my next game into one that featured action elements in which locations are conquered rather than the kind of battles against characters. Some time passed without anything coming of it, but separately, I was also thinking to myself about another plan for a new series of Final Fantasy titles revolving around the story of an angry man. Even more time passed, at which point I had received a request for a new plan. So I combined these two ideas to come up with this. While it is Final Fantasy, it does feel different. But there's no doubt that the blood of Final Fantasy runs through its veins. We've undertaken the challenge of finding this difficult middle ground for this mature and stylish title. We need a little time, blah, blah, blah. We need a little time to complete it. This was back when it was announced. So yeah, the battle system is a bloody one, but it does link to the story, so we'll hope you'll give this a try, end quote. Yeah, so that was what Tetsuya Nomura said when the game was first announced. And I want to also do another quote here to kind of keep things going a little bit more. This is coming from Square Enix website in an interview with the director and producers by Duncan Haney. He asked, it seems that you've taken inspiration from certain other parts of Final Fantasy series. How did you decide which environments to use as motifs? And Inoue-sen says, this is the director, says, take the Sunken Shrine, for example. This location is underwater, and the motif used was a dungeon from the original Final Fantasy VII that's in the seas. When we were looking at all the elements we needed to design it, we thought about turning to document from back in the day, or even looking at how Final Fantasy VII Remake had interpreted the original game in its level design. So you can kind of see that Final Fantasy VII influence in how like dungeons are laid out. I noticed that almost right away, especially whenever there's like ladders and
Yeah.
it definitely felt that way. Duncan Haney also asks, okay, let's talk about story. With Frank Sinatra's My Way and the intense song that plays that Jack listens to after beating Chaos, it seems that he has a eclectic taste in music, but it also seems to come from our world. How is that possible? And Fujiwara-san says, this is the producer, Jack's line in the trailer, "Where do I come from?" shows that he is a stranger. He isn't from Cornelia. Perhaps the place that he and the others originally came from incorporated cultures from lots of different worlds, including the one that ourselves live in. This mystery will be uncovered during the course of the story, along with the memories of the strangers. So that kind of gives you a little tease of the game, right? And what we're dealing with here, as it's so unconventional. It's confirmed that it's not an I say isekai, but I think it's
Isekai.
Isekai, thank you. It's confirmed that it's not. So I guess he's not from our world, dragged into it. We have a lot of theories that we're probably going to share about it. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be revealed in the game, and we can clearly see that we've even seen the evil forest from Final Fantasy IX taken into Stranger of Paradise. We've seen Final Fantasy XIII's Sunlith Waterscape put into Stranger of Paradise. And now we hear that the Sunken Shrine is inspired by Final Fantasy VII. So it seems like maybe just getting wild
And
speculation that there's like this master archetype creating worlds for Jack and the strangers to go through based off of
and
other worlds. The origin of Final Fantasy, I guess. Oh,
and
go ahead.
and you brought this up when we were playing, but the cubes, you said these are very similar to the save spheres
Yeah,
from
right.
Final Fantasy X. The way they open up and there's just like this orb with these things floating around it. It's like very Final Fantasy
Very
X-esque.
Final Fantasy X save points. Like, so there's a lot
Hmm.
of like different elements of Final Fantasy, and I almost want to say like this is the Dissidia action story, like a single player Dissidia, not even single player. I can't say that because it's multiplayer.
Hmm.
But it feels like Dissidia. But Final Fantasy One is the backdrop, the main backdrop that we know of for sure, because we have the four fiends, we have Chaos, Garland, and all this other stuff. So, with all of that said, I do want to talk about the characters. Jack, who is voiced by Moki and Melvin, strongly believes that defeating Chaos is his duty. Shows no hesitation about killing any monsters that stand in his way, cutting them down without mercy. And then we have Jed, voiced by Alejandro Sabe, a kind and cheerful soul, and Ash is equal in strength, respects Jack deeply, and idolizes his power. These are the official descriptions of these characters. And Jed is basically Reno. Really does feel like Reno. Ash, voiced by Mark Neely, supports the party with his cool and collected personality, recognizes Jack's strength in battle, and trusts him implicitly. So you can really, this is one thing that I think we're going to talk about, Vinny, that
Hmm.
bond between these characters,
Yep.
except for Neon, who will clash with Jack. But so Neon, voiced by Alejandra Reynoso. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Though the youngest, she has the same level of ability as her comrades to fight through severe battles, insisting that chaos does not exist. So there are times
Hmm.
where the group clashes there. And Sophia, voiced by Lara Post, a warrior who joins Jack and the others on their journey, holding the same unwavering conviction that they must defeat chaos. I hope you're doing a drinking game right now. Every time I say chaos, please. Yeah, and then we have the Lufinians. Now this is from Final Fantasy One. This is the Sky People from
Hmm.
Final Fantasy One, who were taken out of their sky fortress by Tiamat, and they had to live on the ground. The Lufinians in this game, mysterious people with whom Jack exchanges words during the snatched glimpses of his fragmented memories. And yes, tessellations are involved. Sleep easy. I noticed that as soon as they said pick up your memories of battle from this sphere, that it was all decorated in tessellations. So, what is the link between the Jack and the Lufinians who gave him the crystal? Beyond this stark and emotionless white room, a golden meadow. Ooh. All right, so that's all I wanted to say about setting up the stage for Stranger of Paradise. I just wanted to give you guys maybe a little taste of what you can expect from the game. Maybe this will get you like, ooh, all of that does sound pretty interesting. I definitely want to try it out. Now let's talk about where your fear, your concerns maybe the story or the concept has hooked you. Maybe you're hooked by the concept, you want to jump in, but you're like, wait a second, that gameplay seems intimidating. Well, let's talk about it now. We've already kind of briefly touched on it at the beginning. It's not Soulsborne. Vinny, I understand that you have like a detailed review for me, and I'm so happy that you wrote it. I have also played the demo all the way through to completion. We played co-op. We've played it on hard mode, and then we played it the rest of the game in a single player on hard mode to see how that goes. So we have kind of an idea, a good idea of what you can expect from the game. Vinny, what were your thoughts on the demo?
Well, so just like an overview, I didn't want to stop playing it when like it got late into the night. What did I think I No, I was off the next day, and that's when I beat it. But I didn't. It was like 2, 3 in the morning. I didn't want to get off. I didn't want to stop playing it because I was having fun with it. We found that the multiplayer in it worked extremely well. I mean,
Yeah.
it was pretty seamless. The only situation we ran into was we were fighting Chaos Advent. He had a sliver of health left, and then I was kicked out of your game.
Yeah, well there was that, and then there was the one flaw that I'm hoping that it's just in a day one patch. When I was in your world or playing in your game as your cooperator, I guess.
Hmm.
I my outfits didn't change. I feel
Hmm.
like that was probably something that's going to be addressed. But I have to say it right here as far as the demo review is concerned. When I would equip new outfits, I was still as Ash. I was still in the wife beater, the tank top thing, and nothing changed when I put on like a Twilight tunic or anything. I couldn't look as cool as you, and I didn't,
Hmm.
you
Yeah, I was having a lot of fun. Like every time we would just kill a cluster of enemies, and then we would spend like 5 minutes in the menu, just like looking at all of our new stuff, and like that. I think that's what took us so long doing the first mission. Like, every time we killed an enemy, we were like, "Ooh, this is green. What is green?" And then like,
know.
the rarity scale, because the rarity scale threw me off, because usually it's like white, green, blue, purple, yellow, and in this it's like white, yellow, green, purple,
Oh
and
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. Green is like a 3-star rarity or something. Yeah, so yeah,
right.
it kind of throws you off a little bit.
So I was like, oh, we're already getting yellow stuff because we're playing on hard mode. That's just rarity too. It's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, we were having a lot of fun. Um, I'm not sure why your clothes weren't changing.
yeah.
I'm wondering if it's because it's my Ash you were playing as.
Hmm.
But maybe that, like you said, day one patch, like when you join in as your coded Ash, and then you can change that as much as you want. Um,
Yeah. Well, one
but
cool thing was is as soon as our co-op game was over, my Jack was decked out in everything that I had Ash decked out in.
right.
So my Jack was basically in Vinny's world as Ash. So all
Hmm.
of the progress that we had drops are for everyone, which is great.
Yep,
So
it's not shared.
it's not shared. So we go in there. I get the same amount of XP. I get the same items that Vinny does, and I bring it back to my game. And as soon as I got out of the game, my Jack was decked out. So that was
Hmm.
cool.
Which we found that out because I was kicked out of your game. But this is demo, and I'm sure everybody was hopping on all at the same time,
Hmm.
and everything. Like, every game has server issues. It happens.
Yeah,
It wasn't happening. I mean, we played for a few hours that night, and it
yeah,
happened once.
yeah. It's only
It just
once, not bad. And
right.
it's a
So I
demo.
mean,
We give it to him.
right. So that's pretty good. It's not like it was happening every 5 minutes in a dungeon, and I had to keep joining your game or something like that.
Hmm.
And it was also very easy for you to just re-invite me, and I joined in exactly where we
Yeah.
left off. Had to fight the boss again, but exactly where we left off.
Yep.
Um,
Mid game. Like so, if you're in the middle of a mission, you can invite your friends back in. You don't have to start the mission over again, which is cool.
right. I liked that, and um, just like being so when you're so the only thing you just need a little communication if you're
Hmm.
going to be playing with your friends so that your friend doesn't go too far ahead of you, because if he does, you're going to get teleported to where he is. Like if you go to another area, it's going to say, you are being teleported because so and so is approaching the next area. So like, just minor communication, like, hey, I'm going to explore here. Don't progress, because
Yep.
this game does have secrets. I did find a hidden path. I did find a breakable wall. I did
And
find.
yeah, hidden lore. Like there was
Hmm.
some really good lore, like lore talking about Princess Sarah, that
Hmm.
was eye opening. Like you know,
Hmm.
like that was like, wait a second, this is very interesting stuff. So yeah, it definitely. I would say it wasn't like super rewarding to explore, but when I found that little orb of lore, I was like,
Hmm.
that was rewarding. That was very cool.
And another thing that this game does, apart to just kind of lend itself to being approachable by all um, video game players of different uh, strength levels, is if you go to fight a boss and you lose, right next to that save sphere or the cubes, right
Hmm.
next to the cubes, when you respawn, it's going to have an orb you can read, and it'll say, when you're fighting so and so, be
Yeah.
aware of this, try this. Like, so it even on hard mode, it's giving you like, oh, you just fought this boss and lost, so read this. And
Hmm.
then there are some bosses that have two phases. If you lose to the first phase, you'll have an orb that says, do this. And then if you get them to the second phase and lose, another orb pops up and says, oh, when so and so is in their second phase, this is what's going to happen. You should try this to, mitigate this kind of situation.
Hmm.
So the game is always trying to help you progress. It's not like Neo or Dark Souls where it's like, you know, it's punishing and it's really
Yeah.
trying to prevent you from progressing. This game is trying to help you progress.
I don't know if you
What-
touched on it. I'm so sorry. I was
Mhm.
distracted. But did you mention that you don't drop your souls in this game?
So you don't drop your souls, you drop your MP.
You drop
So
your
if you have like 5 MP bars
yeah,
and then you die and then you go back to where you died, um, and you touch where you died, you'll get all of that MP back. So
it's definitely not as punishing as like losing all of your experience points.
right.
So it's not punishing like that. Which was
Hmm.
one of the big things for me about Souls games. Like, Vinny is a Souls fanatic. Me, never liked him. So if this helps you, I don't like Souls games, and I really enjoyed this game. So
Right.
I hope that means something because I don't like Souls games. But I mean I'm getting into Elden Ring. All right, I'm trying. But yeah. So I want you guys to know that it's not my forte. This game is. And it doesn't feel punishing when you die, which is what Souls is all about. Like you died,
Mhm.
oh, you shouldn't have done that.
I mean,
Like, now we're gonna
it's a good
spawn
thing.
more enemies, like something
It's a,
like that. It's not like that.
it's a good thing you didn't play Dark Souls 2, because in Dark Souls 2, every time you died, your maximum HP got reduced.
No, it's not like that. It's not like that. So
Right.
that is a very important thing that I wanted to address. Like that's why I was like, this is not a Souls game. This is not a Souls meets Final Fantasy. But yeah, so wanted to point that out that you're not losing your progression or the runes or the souls or whatever you've been gathering to level up. You keep all of that, so keep
Mhm.
at it, keep going at it. Try to you don't feel so intimidated by exploring. Whereas in like a Dark Souls or Elden Ring, I just feel like, oh god, I see a cave, probably something good down there, but I don't want to go down there. Like,
Right.
I got too many runes. So with this game, it rewards you. It doesn't feel punishing. You do lose your MP, but that it's really not that big of a deal, which you can earn back pretty easily. So
Hmm. And the game also, like, playing multiplayer, I leveled up so many of my job classes almost to max because of how many anima shards that you get for playing with friends.
mm,
So, um, like, playing with friends makes the game easier, and you get infinitely more XP for your job classes because you can break those anima shards to give, like, so if you're playing as a pugilist and a dragoon or a lancer,
yeah,
and those are the two job classes you're leveling up. And you're like, well, I want to level up my other job classes too. Well, you have anima shards to where you can level up mage and swordsman and uh you like other what was monk and all that stuff without having to play them, because you can use those anima shards on classes that you don't have equipped. So the game makes the game is kind of nudging you along, and the pacing is really good because it's not like Dark Souls where you have an open map and you can just teleport to and from locations and everything. This
mm-hmm.
is more like Neo where it's mission based. It's mission oriented where you choose a mission and you do the mission, and then once the mission's over, you can do that mission from the start right away. Like
Yeah, with
it's
friend if you want to. You could even,
Mhm.
if you are a Soulsborne, let's flip it on the opposite end of the spectrum here. Like you're a Soulsborne player and you want challenge. I can address that in a way as saying this is not as difficult as the game. You might not find the challenge that you're hoping for, but what Vinny was saying, as you can go back and replay the missions, you can put the challenge on yourself by literally going into the battle with just Jack. So instead of having your allies with you, you can do it solo, and that I feel like that kind of boosts the difficulty up a lot. So if you're playing on hard mode, you want even a more difficult challenge, go back and play those missions by yourself with Jack. No allies. So there's that.
And so to answer your question, Black Sheep, uh, I know you haven't beaten the demo yet. You need to. There are missions that unlock other job classes
Mm.
for your secondary characters. They start off with one, and then they unlock as you progress through the game. So,
At the end of the demo, Jed and Ash learn, and I think even Neon, they all
mhm,
learn. They say your characters have learned or regained their combat memories and have learned
yep.
their jobs. So I think like Neon becomes a red mage, and
Mhm.
so on. So
Jed,
then you
Jed
can
is a
switch them.
thief.
Yeah, and then
Mhm.
in the battle settings, when you press the start button, you bring up the battle settings. Then you can switch. Like I want Neon not to be a red mage. I want her to be back to the swords fighter or the sword fighter. And you can kind of switch them that way. You can't switch them on the fly, like when you're in the middle of a battle, but you can do it by just pressing the start button, battle settings, change your
But
friends.
that might change at launch too. It might be a directional pad command where you're like,
That would be nice, but I don't know. I
uh,
feel like what we got in the demo is what we get, right? But it could
right.
change. It could change.
Mhm.
That's
Well, it
very
might be
possible.
something that unlocks later in the game or something. Because
True.
we don't know, but we do
That's
know that
true.
the end game is going to be more focused on multiplayer.
Hmm.
So you're probably not even going to need that job change for your secondary characters because if you're playing multiplayer,
Hmm.
um, you have real human beings changing their job classes. Um,
Yeah, just to address the no crossplay, no crossplay in this
yeah, no
game.
crossplay.
Cross generation play, I believe, is possible. So if you're doing Xbox Series X, you can play with an Xbox One player. I'm
Mhm,
pretty sure that's the case, and vice versa with like PS5 to PS4. PC
mhm.
won't be able to play with like an Xbox user. It's just
Unless
no
it's
cross
the
generate or no cross platform.
unless it's like a well no because it's not it's only going to be for Epic, right?
Yep,
It's
only
not going to
Epic
be
Games.
Xbox PC.
That's right.
Okay.
Just Epic
Yeah.
Games. Um,
um
in no way. Just to address that real quick, we did kind of touch on that. Ash, like I got to play as Ash in Vinny's world, in Vinny's game. So you don't get to choose who you want to play as, which was kind of a little disappointing. But hey,
I think I can
I wanted to be Ash anyway. But I got Ash, and all of the progress that I made as Ash in Vinny's world brought over to Jack in my world. So it didn't level up Ash in my world. It leveled up my Jack.
but I think like so if you told me like hey I want to play as Jed when I'm creating my lobby
Mm.
I can choose like who can play as Ash and I could put no one and then I can
Oh,
who can play as Jed and I can put anyone and so I
oh,
think that would
okay.
automatically make you play as Jed if that's what you wanted
Got you.
you
So it's
have to
down
have
to the
some
host.
communication.
Gotcha. Okay, the host
Mhm.
gets to determine that. All right, very neat, very nice.
um but all right so I guess I think there's one other thing that I wanted to mention for the combo editing for Black Sheep.
Hmm.
This was made most obvious to me when I was playing as the Pugilist because uh, I I played as a few others, but I found that the Pugilist is
Oh
my
man,
favorite so far.
watching
Um,
Vinny play as the pugilist was just like the enemies don't stand a chance. You went up to a Tonberry and just locked him into a
Unlocked
combo.
them,
Like he was just
right?
done.
um, when you are on the job tree and you unlock an ability, it'll say this ability can be attached to this button system, and it'll show you RB with a or whatever you're playing on. But for Xbox controller, it would say like RB arrow RT, which means for the pugilist, I need to hit RB to initiate an attack, and then pull the right trigger to initiate the skill that I used.
Mm.
It'll tell you if it could be attached to other buttons in the combo editing. So if you see in the combo editing where it's like RB RT or RB RB RT or then RB 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 RT, it'll tell you like this can go here, here, and here. Or um, you can put like aerial hook in RBRT, and then you can put explosive fists in RBRBRT, and then when you're looking at your skills, so like
Yeah.
as a pugilist, if I hit RB and I have explosive fist attached to RT, it'll pop up saying I can hit RT at right now and pop explosive fists.
Mm.
But if I'm mashing RB, it'll sift through which thing is next on the combo. So if I hit RB, and then it'll say like explosive fist, then that'll go away and it'll pop up and it'll say aerial hook, and then that'll pop up,
Oh wow.
go away, and my next combo will pop up. So that's how I've
Huh.
seen for at least pugilist how the combo editing works.
That's
And then
interesting.
that is
I hadn't actually noticed that. Like, it must be a pugilist thing. Maybe I just didn't notice it
maybe.
either. But yeah, as a swordsman with the gigantic sword, you can do kind of something similar by setting your abilities to like RB, RB, RT. And they're all really, really basic, right? Like, they're not like you're not having to do half circle Street Fighter, like, combinations
Unless you're playing as the Lancer, because the Lancer has
Oh.
attacks that are based on where you're moving on the directional path.
See, and that's where the game allows you to play the way you want to play. And I wouldn't say, well, I don't know. Maybe I can't say that for sure right now. I don't want to say like one job is more overpowered than the other job. I will say Pugilist was absolutely wrecking when I was watching Vinny do it. I will say that being a black mage or a mage is the way to go if maybe you're like kind of getting into it, because you can kind of hang back a little bit. I went black mage and swordsman, and that or and knight, I guess, after that leveled up. So that allows me to hang back, use my attacks or my magic at a distance, and when they start closing in with that on that distance, or I need to regain magic MP fast, I switch over to my swordsman, and I just kind of dodge around, hit a couple times, and go back to my black mage and let my allies kind of distract him while I throw in like an arrow or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And me playing as the pugilist by myself, um, you know, throwing fists, I was always up on the bosses, and so I was playing very aggressively, and every time I would go to block, I would find myself locked in an animation, so I'd take the hit.
Hmm.
And so it's if you're gonna be playing like a melee character, like I was button mashing at first because I was doing that to like normal enemies, and it was just stun locking the enemies. And then there are some enemies that cannot be stun locked or staggered or anything like that, like bosses mostly. So you'll be punching a boss and he'll just be, swinging at you. Um, and so like it, the everything, like the pugilist may seem like broken and overpowered,
Hmm.
but it does have a drawback where if you're fighting a boss, it's the boss is going to punish you for just trying to lay into it. Um, so if you're going to be playing like a up close melee character,
Yeah.
then learning how to guard, parry, all that stuff is pretty important as well.
Yeah, like
And
that is it's very important. You have two ways to block an attack. Is the soul guard, and which drains your break gauge pretty quickly if you're holding down the soul guard. And then you have the regular holding up your shield or your sword to block, and that like mitigates damage. You can do a perfect block as like an attack comes at you, and then hit that LB right away, and that just boom, and it does a perfect block, no damage. But if it's a purple attack, like the enemies will have color coded attacks above their character before they do it. So if it's a purple attack coming at you, be sure to ready up your soul guard, and then as soon as that attack hits, boom, Soul Guard, and you absorb whatever ability that was, which is awesome.
NP.
Yeah, and MP. So like a lot of MP, a lot of maybe sometimes even the ability they shoot at you, like the bombs. They'll shoot a fireball at you. If you hit that Soul Guard, you absorb the firebomb, and you can send it back at them with your pressing X, which is your, or square, which is your instant ability. So that's really cool. So it's basically the way you defend yourself is by getting out of the way, like a quick dodge, or you can soul guard, or you can just regular block. So there's lots of ways to defend yourself. Yeah, and I just wanted to throw that there.
Yeah, and so basically you're always a blue mage where you can absorb an enemy's skill. Now, if a firebomb shoots fire at you, you will get fire. He's probably not the one you want to throw it back at.
Right, yeah, yeah.
They
True.
they do have enemy formations where you'll be fighting a firebomb and maybe like two skeletons and a goblin. If that firebomb is shooting fire at you from far away, you can grab his fire, throw it at the skeleton, and that really, like, it works to break their break gauge, and then you can do executions on them. So it makes the flow of battle go flow pretty smoothly, because some things lose health faster than they lose break gauge. Some things lose break gauge faster than they lose health.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about figuring out what their weakness is to kind of make that, you either want to kill their health or kill their break gauge. Either one is going to ultimately kill them, but it's just figuring out, like, okay, that's a firebomb. I probably want to use water on him. That's probably going to break his health or his break gauge faster. But if you don't want to play as a mage, you can always grab the fire from the firebomb.
Yeah, you can still do that. Yeah, you can still grab the abilities of the enemies, and you basically have your ranged attacks just like that. As long as you're using that Soul Guard, it doesn't matter what job class you are, it's just really cool, dude. So if you guys have any questions about gameplay, feel free to shoot them in the chat and we'll answer them. But I think we've kind of covered as much as we can on the gameplay side of things. So
right. Move on to story.
I was gonna say, let's move on to something else that people are like maybe a little on the fence about. Is the story itself. Now, I think it's important to address the game is I don't want to say campy or anything like that, because it's unapologetically fun, if I can say that. Like, you know what I mean? That's the way I would describe it. It is a fun story with a lot of depth. That's it is such a cool mashup of, like, say, Final Fantasy V, maybe, I don't know, where there's like, it's just really funny dialogue but with this very serious tone going on.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
The game starts off with what we feel to be a preview fight against Tiamat, or the demo at least starts off that way, and then
which is first 3 missions.
And then
it's gotta be.
Right, and then your hero is meeting up with Jed and Ash, and it seems like they're meeting each other for the first time at this point, because they're like, oh, that dude's got a crystal too? He's like, yeah, this is my crystal. And then, like, Jack is like, well, this is my crystal. I need to kill Chaos. And they're just like, yeah,
bros.
Fist bump.
Yeah. I was like, this is literally how me and Vinny met.
Right.
I was like, dude, I like Final Fantasy. And he was like, me too. And I went, we just become best friends, bro? And like, just like that. That's how dudes do, like, boom. That's how it works. All right. Like that. that's how it works. We literally were, I was like, this is great. I love this is how they met.
Yeah.
It was fun. And that's just what you're getting, right? Like, you're just like, getting that bro. You're getting Jack, who doesn't care, which is great. Like, Jack is focused on one thing and one thing only.
Squall 2.0.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess he's like Squall. He'll cut you off mid. Doesn't matter what you're talking about. He's just like,
right,
whatever, man. Where's Chaos?
Right. Somebody is talking, and like mid sentence he goes, he puts his hand up and he goes, "Just tell me about the
Just-
crystals.
just-
That's all I want."
Yeah. he's like, hey, just tell me about it. Just stop talking, man.
He's
I don't
like-
got time for
he's like-
this.
He's like, "I am the great dark elf, the dark.
I can tell you
the
right
king
now.
of the dark elves, Astos." And
Yeah.
and he's like, "Just shut up and tell me about
Yeah,
the crystals."
he's like going on about like his importance. He's like, just no, like
Right.
So I can guarantee in this game you probably won't be skipping those cutscenes because you
Right.
don't know what's gonna happen. I love it, man, and like just walking away with freaking. It's not Limp Bizkit, because trust me, I listened to Limp Bizkit and I've never heard this song. At least I don't think. I can't remember where it's at. I don't think it's Limp Bizkit. So I tried to find the song. I typed in lyrics into Google. I don't know who sings it. I want to know, Square Enix. I want to know who sings the song. Give them credit, please. I want to know.
Right.
So I want to be able to listen to it. But I don't think it's Limp Bizkit. But it was. That's just awesome. He just like basically this girl just pours her heart out, talking about. What chaos, and like she wanted to become chaos. That's how I needed to kill. And then he's just like bullshit, and he just like walks away. I'm just like,
Yeah.
this game is great. And honestly, I do feel like Final Fantasy V is fair to like compare story wise, because it's like it's got that like it's just like carefree but also serious, because underneath of all of what we just said, I mean, we have a story of this group, I guess, that is just thirsting for killing chaos, and like chaos is doing all this stuff, and like there's so much mystery. What does this mean for Final Fantasy 1? This is the origins of Final Fantasy, or is this the origin of Garland, as they're saying? What does this mean? So there's a lot going on to it, but you're gonna have a fun time. The story feels as fun as the gameplay, it felt like to me.
Right. And if you played Final Fantasy 1, like either the Pixel Remaster or Dawn of Souls or the very original Final Fantasy 1, I found it fun where I was talking to NPCs, talking to main characters, and like listening to the story, trying to have the story unfold, and trying to bridge connections between the story I know and then the story this game is trying to tell. And I'm trying to see like how they are correlating, like, because I mean, these crystals, the king even calls them the dark crystals.
Right.
Now, is he saying that they're dark in color, or are these not the crystals of light, but because they do shine, they're like black eggs with these, each one has a different colored aura coming off of them. So these are obviously, and it's green, brown, blue, and red, that the colors are shining off. But the king himself is, in the original game you have 4 people. In this game you have 3 to start off with, and the king even mentions that. He's like, well, the prophecy said there's 4 people, and these crystals are kind of black. They're
Can I just drop my theory right here?
Sure.
I'm gonna drop my theory right here. I'm gonna post that as a separate video. Here's my my theory. All we have is the first 3 missions of this game. I kind of want to drop it right now, though. I'm going to say that if you played Final Fantasy 1, you may be familiar with, in the Chaos Shrine, there are 5 bats in the Chaos Shrine, and they were sky people at one point, which were cursed to become bats. And in Stranger of Paradise, I have already had this theory because I have pictures up here where they're talking about the sky people would pass on their memories from one generation to the next through rituals. So we're talking about a ritual. This is a quote from Final Fantasy 1. We're talking about rituals where they pass on their memories. The entire game, like, concept of Stranger of Paradise is all about memory loss and all this other stuff. But 400 years ago, they sent out 5 warriors to retake their sky fortress, which Tiamat had took over. They were the curse of the fiends, and they were turned into bats. Is another quote from the game. We came to believe that there were another entity controlling the four fiends. And to ascertain its location, we sent out these 5 warriors. Blah blah blah. Now, when you talk to the bats, they say, "We are sky people. We came here after tracing the root of the world's ruin to this place." And then another bat says, "The four fiends of chaos were taking the crystal's lights and sending its power into the past. Someone 2,000 years in the past is absorbing that power. He is our true foe." And then, "Let the light of the four crystals shine upon the black crystal in the center of the chamber. United, the four forces will open a portal to the Temple of Chaos as it existed 2,000 years ago." And then, "Am I dreaming?" This is what another bat says. "Am I dreaming? Is this the light of the four crystals we could not regain?" So basically, my theory is that they are these 5 bats in the Chaos Shrine. That's my theory, and I don't really have like a fully fleshed out reason why, but all I know is that I don't have a fully fleshed out reason of if they've come back, like their curse has ended and they're just back, and it's been 400 years and they lost their memories and now they're just trying to regain it, or if like I don't know what that means, but just keep that in mind. Also, in the demo, Jed says, "Ugh, I hate bats." And I was like, foreshadowing, Vinny! Foreshadowing! Yep. So yeah, that was just my theory. Anyways, that has nothing to do with the review of the demo. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Back to the story, Vinny. What do you... yeah.
Where did I leave off? Yeah, so there's moments in the game, and this happens early on, where like, so Sarah talks about a knight from 10 years ago named Garland that disappeared because he was searching for chaos, right? He was searching for chaos or the chaos. I know he was searching for the Chaos Shrine, but he disappeared. And then you get to the Chaos Shrine, you fight what is called Chaos Advent, which was Neon, who disappeared 10 years ago, but there's just all these like timey-wimey things going on. Where it's like so in the trailer, Jack says, "I am Jack Garland," but you would think that, like there's a lot of like amnesia going on in this game.
A lot of timey-wimey stuff, like you said, because we saw in the trailer, we saw them what looked like they maybe were getting married or whatever. They knew each other. At the beginning of this game, Sarah like doesn't know who this guy is, Jack. So there's already this thing of like, wait, what? What's going on here? So I think that's important. Like the story obviously has a lot of depth, but it's also going to be, you're going to get your rocking out to some new metal, walking away with your earbuds in.
Right. And there's also storytelling through, like, not just cutscenes, but when you're doing things in the game. And now I have Neon and Jed in my party currently, but that doesn't mean that you lose out on Ash's voice lines. Ash still speaks to me, even if he's not in my direct party.
Yeah.
So I was on an elevator, and Jed and Ash are talking about how Jack might be the one and everything. Like there's just some storytelling between the characters as well if you pay attention. And when you meet the King of the Dark Elves, Astos, but you meet him in such a different way in this game. Like in the original one, he tricks you and you fight him. But in this one, so apparently he made a deal with Chaos, and he says, he didn't make a deal with Chaos.
Like he said it to Jack, yeah.
And he even says that you might pay with your mortality or something like that.
Which goes, like the bat thing kind of goes back to it, feels like.
Right.
But then, dude, okay, that was another thing with the story. I love these punchlines, man. Like, he goes, he's like talking about you will pay with your mortality, or like, you're going to make a deal with Chaos. And like, before that, Jack has been told by Neon that chaos doesn't exist. I think the King of Cornelia was just like, oh yeah, like that's just a fairy tale we've made up to kind of inspire hope that you can slay this monster and everything will be okay. And then Astos tells him that like you're gonna make a deal with chaos and it's gonna cost you your life and stuff like that. And Jack goes, he like smiles and he goes, "What are you smiling about?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm just happy I got some good news for once."
Yeah, right.
I loved it, man. That was so cool. But yeah. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, right? Like, there's a lot of mysteries set up in this first 3 episodes, or first 3 missions of the game, that you can play in the demo right now. And like we said, there was that orb of lore where Princess Sarah was. There's a lot of background on her, where like nobody believed her that Garland even existed. Like, wait, what? So anyways, that's if you have any questions about the story itself, we'd love to answer those too. So what do you, go ahead, Vinny. Do you have any more to say on it?
I mean, just that this game is, I wrote something here where, these, that I call them, what did I call them? The, where is it? Oh, Super Chad frat bros. Because they're just like, it's like if a fraternity was on a pilgrimage to, pass a hazing, like these would be like the guys. Like these are the freshmen, and they're just like doing this like Super Chad frat bro hazing where they're like, oh, we gotta go kill chaos.
Yeah, chaos. Let's go. Every time they meet somebody who wants to kill chaos, they're like, yeah, join our group. Yeah. Let's go.
Right. But like with the biomes of the game. So sorry, I had to move everything because the camera was basically in my nostrils earlier.
Yeah.
But the 3 very different biomes we encounter in the demo, ranging from a dilapidated castle to a colorful cave system, and ultimately finishing in a cyber medieval fortress with an array of enemies that you'll quickly recognize from playing other installments in the game. I mean, cactuars and tonberries, just being loot pinatas, basically.
Yeah. I love how the cactuar even has like a little jingle. You can hear.
He does.
You can hear
he has
his
like
little
a little suction cup noise.
Yeah.
But everything that I've seen in the demo so far, all of the elements are like put together from all of the parts that worked in Final Fantasy 15. So like the story of brotherhood, going on, a very important mission together, and then these like gigantic biomes while your characters are having conversations mid-battle. I mean, like it's funny because like they act like present day modern people too. Like if you drink the last potion, one of your teammates will be like, dude, you really drank the last one? Like,
Yeah.
They're like,
yeah.
They'll say stuff like that. It's very fun, the just being wrapped into it. Like, so far it knows when to be fun, but I don't think we've got enough of it to know if it knows when to take itself seriously.
Right, that's a good call. Good
we
point.
we haven't gotten to a very integral part of the plot where it's like, like
something
the scene in the movie
happens.
where yeah, like your sidekick dies, and like how they would react to that. Like, we haven't gotten to something super serious like that, but I think so far everything in the demo, if it continues this way and it can continue to land on the points it's trying to make, I think it's going to ultimately be a very, very good story. And I'm also excited to just see like how they bridge all of these gaps of how things are unfurling so differently than what we experienced in Final Fantasy 1. Because from the end of the demo, it seems like our first target is the Wind Crystal. So
yeah, it was like, go right here. Like Astos goes, you're gonna go right here for the Wind Crystal, and it's like, wait, what? We know that Marilith is in there. We know that the Earth Shrine, all these other shrines are in there. So I feel like, dude, when I was playing the demo, I honestly felt like this is a bigger game than they've let on. I don't know if I'm going to be correct about that, but I do feel like there's something more to this game than they're actually letting on. Granted, Final Fantasy 1 does have a lot of locations, you know, but I feel
Mhm.
like we were moving right along pretty quickly.
Mhm.
So
The
there,
pacing was nice.
the pacing, yeah, the pacing was really nice. You're already at the Dark Elf castle, you know, like
Mhm.
the Western Keep, like right at the, you know, maybe 3 hours into the game. So,
Mhm.
depending on your skill level, but like it's interesting. I feel like there might be a little bit more going on here.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if you guys have any questions about the story, we will answer them as well. I do want to kind of what we're doing here at Final Fan TV is we have what Vinny has dubbed the trademarked pillars of strength for our review. So we have a lot of like pillars for our Final Fantasy review, and what that includes is like story, gameplay. I think there's 5 pillars. Yeah, story,
Mhm.
gameplay, um, uh, sound. So that includes music, voiceovers, and stuff like that. Number 4 is Vinny. What was number 4? Visuals. So visuals,
Visuals.
and then number 5 is the lasting appeal. So
Right,
we
which for
yeah.
this review is going to be more of a hype factor instead of lasting appeal since it's a demo review.
Yep. And I would like to also kind of bring that to a pillars of weakness as well. I want to kind of throw in some of the cons that I've had for this game as well, based off of what Vinny was talking about earlier about how the camaraderie between the cast, they do repeat their lines a little bit.
A lot.
Oh yeah, yeah, a lot. They repeat their lines a little bit too much. But that was just one of those things that I was just like, oh man, I wish they would have recorded a little more lines. And then, um, yeah, I mean that was basically about it for what I had against that.
For me, my one con that I have for the game is um I just don't think hard mode is that difficult. One thing that I and this obviously could be alleviated, like Daniel said, you can go back and redo a mission without your party there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're fighting a boss, I mean your teammates are pretty strong. It's not like in other games where it's like your teammates kind of pull aggro and stuff. They actually do damage to the boss, and if you're having a difficult time with the boss, if you can just keep your distance from the boss and keep your teammates, if you could just keep kiting his aggro and let your teammates beat up the boss, they'll kill the boss. Even on hard mode,
Yeah,
they'll
they're pretty good.
they'll do the last hit too. You just got to be there to do the finishing move, but they'll they'll I feel like, and of course co-op makes this game infinitely easier. Um, but I'm hoping for, and I believe somebody said it in the chat, maybe like a weekly, like if you've ever played Destiny,
Mm.
like a weekly nightfall, a weekly,
Oh.
dungeon that's increased difficulty for increased rewards where, you kind of need to go in with a party of 3 people and
Mm.
and kind of have some communication and maybe have like raid boss mechanic type stuff where it's like you're gonna want a white mage, or you're gonna want a sage, I think you said it was, or a red mage to
Mm-hmm.
cast haste on everybody because you're gonna want that speed, like just mechanics that like Destiny had in their raid bosses.
Mm.
And when Daniel and I were playing co-op, so one thing you get in co-op that you don't get in single player is you get Phoenix Downs. You get 5 of them.
Yeah, that was interesting.
So if I were to die, I can revive myself with a Phoenix Down. Daniel doesn't have to do anything. Um, and then if you run out of Phoenix Downs and Daniel still has potions left, and I die, Daniel can run over to me, use a potion on me, and then I'm back in the fight. So it's co-op is it, ex- makes the game infinitely easier, even on hard mode. I'm hoping the full release hard mode is a little harder, because right now I feel like I'm just kind of you know slapping the game. Now that's just for me. I know most people are going to be like, oh, I don't care if the game is brutal or punishing. I'm playing and I want to be able to beat the game.
Hmm.
without having to sweat. So that's just for me. I hope hard mode is a little easier. I mean, a little harder
Yeah.
when the full release comes out. But as of right now, I just think hard mode is a little too easy.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely based on your skill level. And like I said at the top of the show, Vinny is a Soulsborne fanatic, right? So like hard mode might be very difficult for you, and that's okay. Like
Mhm.
don't feel like, oh man, Vinny said this was easy. How come I'm struggling so much? Don't feel bad.
Mhm.
One thing that I did really like about the difficulty of hard mode is that it felt like I was fighting there's a enemy in this game called the Black Knight. It's the last boss fight in the demo, and it was just destroying me. I died a lot, and I'm like, why can't I figure this out? It's all about figuring out using that Souls Guard, like grabbing the purple abilities and then using it against them. And that was the key. And I think that was one of the things I found out about Bikke and Garland. It's you get your butt whooped a bunch until you start to realize, okay, I got to use this technique. I got to do this. And it's not like it's impossible. It doesn't have to be frame perfect. It doesn't have to be like if you make a mistake, you're done. It's not like that. If you make a mistake, you're going to take a hit, and you got potions, plenty of them, or not plenty of them, but you got a good amount of potions. And you're not like super punished for making a mistake. uh so yeah, I mean hard mode wasn't as difficult as as even I would like it to be. But it was a challenge. It wasn't like, I mean, I did die a lot, so like against those bosses. So yeah, I mean, it's just all about finding the right strategy, which is awesome. This is what we want in a game anyway.
Mhm.
So yeah, so those are about the story and gameplay. Let's talk about where I think a pillar of weakness is actually a little more prominent in this category than other like all the other categories. The visuals. For me personally, I think the visuals in this game are not great. I'll be honest with you. I think the game runs at 720p. I think I'm not sure about the specifics of it, but it really feels like 720p. And if you don't know what that means, it just doesn't seem crisp. Like there's a lot of shimmering in shadows. Like the shadows will flicker, a lot of flickering in the shadows. Reflections kind of like pop in and out really good. I'm sure when you watch the Digital Foundry breakdown, they'll have a lot more of like the correct jargon for all of this, but you're gonna see that they're gonna be like, whoa, if they do one. It is there's something going on here that I'm not understanding. I played it on the Series X, which is, I mean, that's the most powerful console you can get. How come this is not, like, how come it's not looking super crisp? How come I can't play it 4K? We even have the specs for the PC version, and we're talking 1080p 60. And like it was like the recommended settings. Hopefully, I don't know if recommended settings means ultra. I'm not sure exactly. I'm new to the PC space. But if recommended settings is not their ultra settings, we're talking like a max of 1080p, which is interesting. Especially since I have a 3080, I would love to play this game in 4K, and whatever frame rate it can max it out at. So I have to say the visuals are, I'm not super impressed with at first glance. Uh, Once you get used to it, once you're in the game, you're having fun, and it is a lot of fun. So you're not really focused too much on the visuals. Um, I think it starts to kind of like you're like, oh, okay, whatever, this is fine. Uh, and then you start to realize, like Vinny said earlier, those different biomes are really interesting. So when we say visuals, we're not just talking about the surface level. You got a screenshot. Look at this. When we say visuals, we're taking into consideration the artistic direction. We're taking the special effects and stuff like that. So, at first glance, doesn't look pretty. Um,
And
yeah,
so on the flip side of that, I don't know what you chose to prioritize, but I chose to prioritize performance, and my
hmm.
game looked beautiful.
I That okay. I mean, I prioritize resolution. Like I was like,
Right.
hopefully, if I do that, then the game will look crisper, and it didn't.
I I prioritized performance, and my game looked beautiful. I had nothing bad to say about it.
Really
Yeah.
interesting. Interesting. So maybe it's just like as No Way saying in chat right now, just not optimized correctly, and maybe a
Mhm.
day one patch uh,
Yeah.
could fix that. I did
Also,
notice. Go ahead.
no, you can go.
Oh, I was just gonna say in the PC version, I know the demo we're getting only the 3 missions, but a lot of the times when they do something like this, you're getting the full game. And
Okay.
you know what I mean? Like a lot of times where they do like, hey, you get a timed trial, you're downloading the full game. It's just cutting you off until you purchase it and it's time to play it. And it only came in at like 30 some gigabytes. The PC
Mine was
version,
43.
maybe it was 40. I'm sorry. The P, basically what I'm trying to say is it doubles it to 80. So like the
Oh
PC
wow.
version says 80 gigabyte download for the game. So if that's the case, maybe there's a lot more to the full game that were, I mean, like some visual enhancements and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so no way. I'm very curious because we didn't get a chance to play it on the older consoles. Are you playing on a PS4 or an Xbox One by any chance? Kind of curious of how it performed on those consoles. But yeah, like on the Series X, I can say that the frame rate was smooth. Like I didn't have any problem with the frame rate at all. But visuals I had some issues with. Um,
Mhm. And
so yeah.
to kind of counterbalance that, one thing I'll say that the visuals do look good on is like, so the outfits, that their artistic direction for outfits,
Oh yeah.
um like I it you feel like a badass when you're wearing
I know, right?
some things look like skin tight suits on Jack, and I'm like, man, I want something with a I want something with a hood or a cape or
Give me
something. But like
belts.
you get this like Bane mask. I got this, I think it was called like the caster mask, but it looks like Bane's mask on Jack's face. Like that was cool. A
Hmm.
lot of the weapons look really cool. Uh and then the spells, like the spells look and sound exactly what you think like a real life spell would look like. So like when you're using like water gu, it's like you're casting, you're like summoning this
Yeah.
big wave to hit something. Like um it looks like spells should look.
Honestly, and I hate. I'm sorry to cut you off, but like we
No,
didn't
no.
we didn't talk about that with gameplay. Like casting spells is fun. Like you hold down the right
Mm,
trigger, and I love the system they have in place. Like you're rewarded for waiting longer, basically. But you're putting yourself at risk, a risk reward situation. If you hold down the right trigger, you bring up basically a magic wheel that you can tilt your thumbstick over to select which one you want. So if you want water, you go down to like the left or the bottom left or something like that, and it selects water. If you wait like about a third of the bar, it turns into watera, and then it turns into wateraga, and then like basically, if you wait long enough, you can cast a more powerful spell. I
mhm.
think that's a lot of fun. I really like the way they adopted that system into the combat.
Right, which is, I don't know if many of you know, but casting time is a thing in the earlier Final Fantasies. A black
Yeah.
mage will cast fire sooner than he would cast, fire 3.
Hmm.
So if you want to cast fire 3, your black mage might be sitting there for a little while, charging up that spell. And in Stranger of Paradise, it's very similar, where you stand there, and if you want to cast a stronger spell, you're standing there charging it for a little bit longer, um, which is fine because it always feels like your teammates are pulling aggro anyway, so you can kind of just, there there's not a lot of situations where you would uh like lose from that situation
Hmm.
unless your screen is just filled with enemies and
It's
you have
true.
to think like very fast wolves
Yeah.
I've never known how to pronounce this. Coral? Like
Oh,
that the cat that casts thunder
I
and
called it.
blaster?
I've always called it coral.
I, I've called it a Searal.
Huh.
Like I
those were
tomato
like,
tomato, but
yeah, like when you fight against them, they're actually kind of easy once you get the hang of it. Like, just grab their thunder and don't send it back at them because it does that much damage. But just grab their thunder and store it up. Um, but yeah,
or
so
grab their blaster. Blaster works on them too.
yep. So like visually using, like you were like, to your point, like using those spells feels fun, like feels epic. So like there was one time when you're in there with your Pugilist going in there and just destroying them, and I said, here comes a quake, and like, it just times right with your final combo, just like boom, and we just destroyed that Tonberry. Like, there was,
The co-op is fun. The
yeah,
co-op is definitely
dude,
fun.
you can imagine making it more difficult putting like team damage in. like
Oh,
I
right.
can't throw a fireball at you. That would have been crazy difficult, but maybe that's something they can consider.
I I,
Yeah.
I want to see like you, me, and somebody else all pugilists just punching the same thing. This poor thing is just getting triangulated into like nothingness.
Yeah, it would be fun. So like,
Um,
yeah, so the visuals, we're talking like the costumes are great. We're talking magic spells are look really good. The different biomes that we touched on earlier. I mean, my goodness, you said, like, what did you say? Cyber medieval. I love that.
yeah, the it's a cyber medieval fortress.
Mm.
So I said it basically like it's medieval 3022. Like,
Yeah.
you just have it's like this castle with all these electronics, but it looks and feels like a castle. It even has like this auto firing ballista that shoots like
Yeah.
these cyberpunk arrows at you. It just
Yeah.
it's very cool. It's very different than being in Cornelia that looks high fantasy. Almost I said it resembles kind of Luca from Final Fantasy X.
Oh yeah.
How like the architecture, structure, everything is
Hmm.
centered around the middle.
Hmm.
Um
They did a
and
great
then
job of like recreating Cornelia for I that was, I guess we can talk about that a little bit too, just to touch back on, was you're not exploring the towns, which was one thing I was like, oh man, that's, I don't know if I'm really digging that as much. But you're basically, if you want to talk to the town folk, you go to the map and you just go to literally, it just goes to an option that says talk, and then you do a list of people you can talk to. You click on them and it takes you to this, your generic Cornelia backdrop, and they just talk to you about the current events.
mhm,
That's There's no exploring the towns in this game, no exploring the world map. It's all about that action. It's all about getting into the levels and missions and stuff.
right.
Yeah.
Um but I Cornelia to Provoca. Um, wait, how do they say it? Is it Provoca?
Provoca.
Provoca,
We
that's it.
have been
I
saying that wrong as well.
right. Um, you know, Provoca, and
Mhm.
then from Provoca to that, that cyber medieval fortress, like it, and then once you get to a certain point in the fortress, it feels like a medieval fortress. Like you're on the ramparts and everything's made out of
Yeah.
stone, and then you go back inside and you have this elevator, like this
Real
digital
quick,
elevator.
real quick,
Hmm.
I'm sorry. I do want to give a great shout out to Crystal N. Thank you so much for tuning in and for following. And I do want to appreciate that. Before you go, you have to go. So thank you for being here. Thanks for following.
Yeah, thank you very much. Um, but yeah, I think the places uh look great. The effects of the executions, I love that. Like when something is has its break gauge and it just goes into this mini cutscene, which is kind of like a strategy too. Um, you don't take any damage when you're in that. So if somebody's charging up a powerful attack and something's has its gauge broken, you can kind of use that moment to just negate all damage while you're going through this cutscene of you mercilessly like I grabbed a harpy, and
Yeah.
then he just started slamming it into the ground a whole bunch of times. And then there's also these moments where you're kind of like, you know, Jack is a little sadistic. Like he'll
Yeah,
like
he had a little smile on his face when he
right
jabbed that spear into the Dark
right
Knight or the Black Knight.
he has
Yeah,
that he has that smirk where like right before he just shatters it, he just
yeah.
like smirks and
This
then
is
just
something he wanted to do. He wanted to
right.
do it. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Um,
yep.
yeah.
I will say though, I also to comment on the visual side, another one of the things that I was slightly disappointed in, as of right now, because I mean 3 missions in, but for the 3 missions in that I can say that I don't think this game is really leaning into the rated M, the M rating as much as I wanted.
mhm.
Um, Being 3 missions in, I haven't heard any kind of language besides bullshit, which is fine for like even a rated T game. Um, and as far as like those executions go, those crystals cover up so much of anything that I don't know how this game is not getting away with a T rating. To be at this point, I didn't see anything other than the intro where Garland is like he throws somebody in the ceiling and blood drips down on his helmet, which is one of the coolest Final Fantasy intros. It goes up there as one of my favorites.
Mhm.
Um, that intro is definitely rated M, but the game itself doesn't feel rated M to me yet. Visually, I'm not seeing any kind of gore. They said that there's blood spatter on the characters. I can kind of see it sometimes. Like on the great sword, you can definitely see the blood spatter, but it's not nothing that's really showing me like, hey, this is rated M. So hopefully later on in the game, it does kind of maybe
I-
reinforce that a little bit more.
I'm just glad it's not one of those games where the blood splats on the screen and stuff. That
Oh yeah.
used to annoy me. I hated that. Um, but yeah, I mean, aside from that, the combat is flashy, fluid, and fun. So
Yeah.
it's very it's not clunky like some other games in this genre are. Like a lot of people say Dark Souls 1 is very slow and just stiff.
Mm.
This I feel like is the complete opposite. This is very fluid. The pacing is great, and it just all of your weapons, like you're swinging a great sword, but you don't feel like you're heaving a great sword. It feels
Mm.
like you're swinging a great sword.
Yeah.
Um, which, everybody nowadays wants, you know, fast,
Yeah.
speed and everything. We have the technology, systems have the power,
Yeah.
like it works for this game.
Yep.
And that's really all I have to say about the visuals. Oh, and that environmental, like there's things in the environment that are visual, but they also have mechanics like the barrels. You could break the barrels. Still
Mm-hmm.
not quite sure what those red orbs are giving me. I think it might just be job XP at this
Mm.
point. Um, but there's barrels that you could break, and then there's spider webs where you can go around the spider web, or you can go through the spider web. You'll get slowed temporarily, and you have to fight a black widow. So like
Mm-hmm.
there's things in the environment that are not just there for show as
Yeah,
well.
and it goes to your job class too. Like so, those spider webs. I see a spider web. I charge up a fire gun and shoot it at it, and not only does it break the web, the spider falls down on top of it and just gets automatically. It's its weakness, so it's basically automatically ready for a soul burst.
Yep.
So like the environment's also playing to the strength of of your job class. There was another like it looked like a wall that was specifically an emblem of a sword fighter. And I don't know necessarily that's what I used to break it. I don't know if you
I
necessarily
I punched it and it broke.
okay, never mind then. But there was a wall that seemed like okay, something suspicious about this wall, so I just attacked it and it broke and there was a secret behind it. So it's kind
Mhm.
of cool. And of course, Neon was like, "I was just joking about the secret rooms," like so.
Right,
There's
yeah.
there's a lot of like that banter I love about it. Um, so yeah, we've talked about Vinny. We've talked about the story. We've talked about the gameplay. We've talked about the visuals. It's time to talk about the sound.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the music, the sound effects, and things like that. Once again, if you
I
guys have questions about anything about these pillars that we have, please sound them off in the chat, and we will definitely answer them. So sound, Vinny, what were your thoughts on the sound pillar
I
here?
love it. I was constantly bobbing my head to the electronic tracks that they had playing.
Yeah, mix too.
Yeah.
It was very diverse in its
Mhm.
soundtrack. There's a lot of renditions of like Final Fantasy 1 songs, but
Mhm.
there was like one moment where I was like, is this is this dubstep? Like, what is going on right now?
right? It had it very, very good uh what's the word, structure
Yeah.
to the songs to go along with the tone of what you're doing. Like, I mean, most of the electronic stuff was running through that like cyber castle,
Mm-hmm.
but there was also like in Chaos Shrine, where it was dilapidated and falling apart. You still had that, and then you have, Canon earpods in the cutscenes where it's just listening. Then you have Frank Sinatra,
Yeah,
and then
Frank
you have
Sinatra. Like, what?
yeah, and then you have something like Cornelia's theme is it's very high fantasy, but high fantasy modern. And then you can, once it clicks, like once you hear those notes where you're just like, oh, this is Cornelia's theme. Like it's very I'm s- I'm doing terrible with words today, but it's very it's like a throwback to
Reminiscent.
the
Yeah,
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 very reminiscent of its original soundtrack. It's
yeah,
like paying homage to it.
yeah. There you go. Like, it's a good, definitely a good point. Like, and then we've also seen in trailers or videos and stuff that they're bringing in like Sunlit Waterscape from Final Fantasy 13. So I feel like we're going to get a mix of all of these different games coming in, which is just like the same thing with the story and the visuals. Like, it seems like they're going for this a Dissidia type thing where crossovers from all of the different Final Fantasies, but and that goes for music as well. But as far as the demo goes, yeah, I agree with Vinny on this. Like, it was really good. I enjoyed it. I remember we were playing co-op I took a moment. I was like, Vinny, is this the
Yeah,
jam right now, bro? Like, are we
yeah.
jamming? So,
It's such a great soundtrack.
yeah, yeah. So I was very pleasantly surprised with enjoying their renditions of Final Fantasy songs that we've already heard. So
Mhm.
I love the soundtrack already. I'm excited to hear more. Uh, I haven't heard anything that's besides the opening trailer, dude. That opening trailer had a good soundtrack too. Like
Mhm.
anything big, an epic scale. We're waiting for that. We're waiting for that epic scale. I guess when we fought Tiamat, maybe I wasn't paying attention too much to the soundtrack, but I wonder, you know what I mean? Like, I want that
Mhm.
epic, like epic
I,
Final Fantasy boss. You know?
I need to play it again because um it was so distracting that the first thing
From
upon entering
Tiamat,
the
like.
game you're fighting Tiamat, and Tiamat's moveset's like really cool. Like she incorporates all six of her heads. Like she's
Yeah,
shooting
using.
laser beams in different directions and
Found out what that
like
macro burst does.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um but like it was just so distracting that I really don't remember absorbing any other type of stimulus from that fight except like, oh, I'm fighting Tiamat right this very
Yeah,
second.
yeah,
You
that
know?
that was crazy. It was clearly like one of the, or not clearly. I guess it's not. We still have questions, but it felt a lot like Final Fantasy 15, where you start the game and you're automatically fighting Ifrit sitting in that throne room,
Mhm.
and then you're like you cycle back to when your car breaks down, and like you get to that point. At the end of the demo, Astos does tell us to go straight to Tiamat, basically.
Mhm.
So I think we're on our way to catch up to that point. Maybe not. I don't know what happens along the way. We're gonna have to buy the game and find out.
Mhm.
Um.
Uh,
So
one
yeah,
thing
yeah,
one thing I was disappointed in when we found it out was that the heroes went to the king and was denied because they needed to fight a list of infamous beasts to prove their worth. And I'm
yeah.
like, why is that not in the game? I want to fight a list
Right.
of infamous beasts and prove my worth. Like,
Yeah, that
you
would be
know,
awesome, man. Like, give
right?
us
Like,
give us that in like a like you were talking about a special event or something, or some kind of
right.
DLC or whatever. But I'm looking at the DLC now. I don't see anything that would match up to, like, hey, remember we talked about that? Like, Trials of the Dragon King is obviously not it. Wanderer
Right.
of the Rift, maybe. And A Different Future, definitely not. I
Right.
think Different Future is going to set up a second one. Like the sequel to Stranger or to FF Origin.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I mean, and this game has already been talked about as being hopefully a potential new series, like a new spin-off
Hmm.
series. So I think they're definitely setting that up. But
Uh,
so another thing on the audio side of things, the sound side of things, is the special effects, and this and like the voiceovers. Now, I think the voiceovers are accurate to like what they're going for. I will say that they do repeat themselves a little bit, like we talked about. And yeah, I mean, I already love Jack, but it is definitely like what you said earlier, Vinny. I think what we need to see is how they're going to respond to emotional moments. We haven't seen like a obviously we haven't seen a powerful performance yet. You know, what I mean, like because we're only 3 missions in, so I am curious to see how things go when they start really getting into it. So we can't really comment too much on the voiceovers right now. I think
Right.
we can't really give that a official review, but
Right. I mean, so far the voice acting is more silly, often than not.
yeah,
But as of right now, it seems like the game is trying to be fun, not serious. I mean, with voice lines like Jack cutting off the King of the Dark Elves, just tell me about the crystals. I don't give a shit what you have to say
yeah,
right now.
right.
Like, but I like it. It's fun. Like it's not corny. Jack is staying true to who he is. He's
Chaos.
like, right, his goal is chaos, and this guy's like, I'm king of the dark elves, and I, I for 400 years he's just like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Like it's like Audrey on Twitter. Like she said Jack is a cutscene skipper.
Yeah,
He's like, okay, that's enough. Press X to skip. I'm gonna get to
right,
the.
right, and it's like that's great because I I want to skip cutscenes if I'm not interested, but I don't because you never know what you're gonna miss. And it's like, I feel like Jack has got my back. He's gonna be like, he's gonna let something unfurl if it's gonna be interesting, and if it's gonna be somebody talking about themselves for 15
Yeah.
minutes, he's gonna be like,
There was a lot of grunting too. I gotta say that I don't know if
oh
you
yeah,
want to. I don't know if we throw this under the a pillar of weakness or a pillar of strength, whatever. But like it was funny when
yeah,
Princess Sarah was talking and she's like, "Oh Jack, I'm glad you're back." And he's like, mm.
too many
He's
grunts.
like, "Can I ask you of doing one more favor for me?"
Like, I,
Audible frustration coming from Jack at every moment. Just
Jack always sounds like somebody's interrupting him watching The Bachelor or something. He's like, this is the last episode.
sounds like me when I'm trying to play a game and I got my kids just running around screaming, just trying to
Right.
just trying to hear this game. I can't hear it right now. I guess I gotta pause it. But yeah, like it's just audible frustration coming from Jack at all times.
Right.
It's good. So I don't know. There's a couple grunting stuff in there. But it's funny.
Yeah.
And sound effects. I mean, everything. I guess in the sound department, we will play the full game to really like dive into that. But
Mhm.
so far, no complaints. I guess other than the like sometimes voice acting can be a little bit um jarring. I guess if you're expecting
Mhm.
it's a very serious game, it's not. But it is at the same time. I love this, Vinny. I love
Yeah.
this.
Right.
So yeah,
The demo definitely got me super hyped for the full release.
right. So like,
When
let's just jump, dude. Let's jump into the Pillar 5. Right. So
Mhm.
Pillar 5 in a regular review when we do our mainline series of this of Final Fantasy, which we are doing, and then we re-rank everything. The
Mhm.
fifth pillar is lasting appeal. Like, how does this game? Is it going to affect generations? How is it going to go on from here? Are we going to get sequels and all this other stuff? This is only 3 missions that we're in, and it's a demo review. So we'll scale it back. And like Vinny said, we're going to scale it back to our hype check. Like, this is a hype check. What's our hype rating right now, Vinny? And it sounded like you just said, I'm really hyped to play the rest of the game.
Right, I am. I'm really hyped to play the full release. Uh, I mean, I'm the game's not even out yet, and I'm excited for the DLC because like I just I'm gonna be excited for whenever this game is like, you want more, here's more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know we have 3 DLC lined up, which is pretty awesome because coming from somebody who's played Souls, I'm used to getting one or only like definitely one, maybe two. And it's like this one has 3 off the bat, so it's gonna be, and then
Yeah.
depending on how successful it is, especially if they're gonna do stuff like we talked about earlier, night falls and everything.
Yeah.
weekly updates to where there's going to be a different mission that's like hell mode mission, or
Yeah.
beyond that it's just like nightmare, where it's like this is going to be extremely hard. Recommended, level is, the highest you could possibly get it. And you should probably play with two other friends,
Yeah.
like difficult missions.
I mean, they
You
have
know, I
5 players or like 5
right,
characters. That would be cool if they did like a 5-player
a
raid.
raid. That
Yeah,
would be a raid.
5-player raid with all the cast that you see.
Right, and
That'd be
with
cool.
Dawn of Souls being in the series, you have bosses like the Doom Train was, I think, in Dawn of Souls,
Oh yeah.
uh,
Yep, that's right.
Ultima Buster, Shinryu, like all these bosses that weren't in the Pixel remaster were in Final Fantasy One Dawn of Souls as kind of like these super bosses.
Yeah.
So they could be raid bosses
What was that?
essentially.
What was the mech at the end of in the Sky Fortress of Final Fantasy One? What's that called? Uh,
Uh, he's just a normal enemy
yeah,
that's
but it
just
takes for
very
like
fun.
yeah, it's like yeah. No, I'm talking about like one of the it's one of the most it's even more difficult than Chaos. I thought like it's one of the
Yeah,
most
yeah, he's the
powerful.
hardest thing to fight in the
Yeah,
game.
yeah. So that would be cool to make that a raid.
Mhm,
But yeah, I mean, like that's just kind of like us thinking of outside the box here. But as far as like the multiplayer sounds like a lot of fun, and they've already announced that they are going to do multiplayer specific, like tailored for multiplayer experiences.
mhm,
They've already kind of announced that, so that sounds really cool to me. I'm
mhm.
really excited about that. The multiplayer is a ton of fun. Like it is a lot of fun. We haven't done 3-player multiplayer. I can imagine that's going to be super easy, but hopefully they do like Vinny's saying, tweak that difficulty. Dude, if they have to put team damage on, I think that would definitely throw things off. Like you don't even have to tweak any of the other settings.
Right.
Like just like if I can't cast Fire Go while Vinny is destroying somebody as a pugilist, then that's going to be challenging.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I think
Ul-
there's that. Go ahead.
Ultimately, I give this like hype like 4 out of 5.
Oh wow, a 4 out of 5, which is, I mean, that's really good, dude. That's really
Mhm,
good. I think I would actually agree. Honestly, I'd agree with that. A 4 out of 5 for this game. I'm excited about it. For the demo, the hype demo.
mhm. The
Four
hype
out of
demo.
five for the hype demo here, or the the hype check. Um, I think my biggest complaint right now is the visuals. I'm really hoping that something gets like optimized a little bit better. Something's going on. I'm not sure why the game is running the way it's running. Uh, and it's visually, not frame rate performance wise for me.
Mhm.
It's just visual. So there's obviously something going on. Hopefully they can do some patches for that to get it up there. But right now, like I said earlier, once you're into the game and playing it, man, I'm having a lot of fun with this.
Mhm.
And it's Final Fantasy. Right now, it's Final Fantasy One. But we're seeing that there's like a Dissidia feel to it. As long as we're not taking and they're basically saying this is not like a canon thing. So if it is like a Dissidia thing, sure, let's bring in some crossover events and stuff. But as long as they're not trying to say like, hey, this is the origin of all those games that you love, you know what I mean? Like that's when it
Right.
starts to get a little bit like, okay, hey, wait a second,
Right. Now you
kind of touching some sacred ground here. Let's,
right.
but as long as they're not doing anything like that, like we never considered Dissidia's, stories canon or anything like that. So as long as we stick to that, I'm good. But if we start, like I said, the Final Fantasy origin becomes this thing about like, hey, here's us taking a beloved story and twisting it.
Mhm.
Then it starts to be like it's Final Fantasy One. I'm not like super attached, but I do respect like what Sakaguchi had like established with this, and I don't want it to be feeling like that's my concern. That's all my concern is I don't want it to feel like in any way disrespectful. But
Mhm.
once again, they've already kind of like reiterated that this is just a motif. It's set to Final Fantasy One's world. But yeah, so that's my
Mhm.
concerns for where my hype check is. But it's nowhere near like a concern like a Final Fantasy VII status for me. Like that's
Mhm.
way more concerning for me. But, or not even concerning, but like it's way more on my mind. Final Fantasy 1, I love that they're taking this game and they're this world. I love that they're adding this fun. It's just a fun game. That's what's cool about it. Okay, who knows? Maybe Final Fantasy 14 will get a visit from Jack Garland. Honestly, I think that's in the that would be in the cards, right? Like,
Hmm.
I think
Absolutely.
Jack will be in there. You could probably create a character that looks like Jack. like
Right.
honestly,
Oh, with a cattail?
sure, why not? That
Why
Jed
not?
looks like a cattail guy. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so like I'm excited. Anybody in chat have any questions before we conclude this final preview? If you didn't catch this live, like if you're just now tuning in, it will be uploaded to youtube.com/finalfantv. Vinny, go ahead and plug that in the chat for me, please. You know how to do it. Exclamation point YT, I think it is, Vinny. And then yeah, I mean, like, go check that out. Perfect. It'll be up there. And yeah, if you guys have any questions,
And
we'll definitely answer them live right now on the
and
show.
also, since this game is multiplayer, if you guys want to um play with us, be our third, or if one of us aren't on and the other one is, like, if you want to play uh Stranger Paradise with us, then hop on our Discord and let us know, and we can always
Yeah,
arrange a time.
we're
Because
gonna be we're
I'm
gonna
gonna
be
have it
playing
on Xbox and PC. I don't know if Daniel's gonna have it on both, but I'm gonna definitely have it on Xbox and PC. So if
That's
you're on
awesome.
either of those, then yeah, we can play Stranger Paradise together, especially when those harder tailor-made multiplayer missions come out.
Oh
If you
yeah,
don't have, because I know somebody said like they haven't been able to try multiplayer because none of their friends are willing to give it a shot. It's so if they don't like it and you really don't have anybody to play with, you got us.
that's true.
Hmm.
Come on in, man. That's what for Final Fan TV, baby, for the fans. Unless you said already, what's that? Oh, what's your
He
favorite
asked what our
job
favorite
class?
job is. So
Okay,
far, pugilist. The punching
dude,
everything
it's just
into oblivion is just great.
you get that Jack mentality, punching everything into oblivion.
Right.
Uh,
There is no cross-platform, but we believe there's cross-generation. So
yeah.
Xbox One with Xbox Series X, PS4 with PS5.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no way, I have a PS5. I might just get it just for you, buddy.
Just gonna buy all three copies. I love it.
I might as well.
Dude, I would love to join you guys. Oh, awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Join the Discord.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be great. And then because trust me, we have a lot, we have a lot of fun with these games.
Hmm.
With when we whenever we're playing co-op or something like that. So this is
We
this is
curse a
what's
lot
great.
when we play too, though. So just so if you don't like vulgar language, just tell us to tone it down. But we curse a lot.
That would be Vinny.
Yeah, I curse
You'll
a
hear
lot.
me. I have kids, so like I'm just my mind is trained to say crap.
Right, right.
I am no longer anything like that. So I was always like, oh gosh darn it.
Yeah.
I'm sensing some of the hardcore Final Fantasy fans being more open-minded with a game where Final Fantasy VII Remake had to be absolutely perfect to satisfy people. Yes, that yeah.
Hmm.
So
Now
actually, to kind of circle back, I want to answer Seven Deadly. My favorite job class is actually like Black Mage. I love casting the spells. It's a lot of fun. And then being able Red Mage has it where you can chain spells, which is cool, but you don't regain your MP when you do the casting ability. Like for
Mhm.
Black Mage, if you're holding down the casting, your MP gauge actually goes up. So for Legend, yeah, I guess I'm kind of one of those people for Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yeah, so like it was
And
kind of like seven is a sacred ground. Final Fantasy One is like okay, I'm a little open minded with it.
and for me, like Final Fantasy One is almost sacred ground for me. Like I
Yeah,
love Final Fantasy One a lot.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm a pretty hardcore fan with Final Fantasy One, but none of everything I've seen so far isn't like, offensive. I find it fun
Yep.
trying to bridge these gaps, and it's like, to me it's like a different story of the game I used to love being told a different way. So I'm really enjoying it. It they're not like upsetting me with anything, and I love Final Fantasy 1. Final Fantasy 10 is probably where it would approach like I don't
Yeah,
want you
right.
to change
Now
too
we're
much.
getting it is. It's so true. It's so true. So like when we start going
Mhm.
like, whoa, wait a second, and we've talked about the future of Final Fantasy Origin, and we're like, dude, an Emperor Mateus story would be so good if they like
Right.
continue this trend. I would love a an origin story of Emperor Mateus from Final Fantasy
Right.
2. Um, all right, what do we have? Anything else? I have nothing positive to say outside of combat, so I'm just hang out. So is there anything like? Are you talking about Stranger of Paradise Legend? And then for Seven Deadly Streamers, dislike Lancer
Uh,
because it's a little slow, but time to. You know what was cool
y-
about Lancer was the whole like we were talking about earlier, being able to like to do the thumbstick movement.
yeah, so the way the according to where you're moving your directional pad depends on the analog stick depends on the attack pattern you're going to use for the Lancer.
Mm-hmm.
The Lancer I know I didn't play too much with it. The Lancer I know throws the spear, but there is a Dragoon class that can jump. You need to finish Lancer and one other job tree. You'll unlock Dragoon and then you can jump with that.
Mm,
I don't think Lancer has jump, but
mm.
somebody has jump. There's definitely jump
Yeah, you
in the
have to
game.
go through the Lancer to get the Dragoon, which is, I mean, that's it's worth it. I think I would love to play
Right.
as Dragoon. I haven't had a chance
And
yet.
and the best thing is like so I played as duelist and then pugilist because I want to unlock thief, and I like pugilist more than I think I'm saying that right. Pugilist.
Pugilist.
I don't know. You guys know what I'm talking
I
about
think I
though.
said Pugilist. That's what I
Um,
call it.
but so you unlock Venom with duelist, and then you can attach Venom to your like skill tab, and then you can have the pugilist use Venom. So he just casts Venom so that all of his attacks start building up poison, um, like the poison meter for the enemies,
Yeah.
and then you can just punch things, poison them. You can poison bosses, and you can kind of just like poison them, sit back and read their attack moves while they're still losing HP. And Venom only costs one MP bar, so you could just keep using it for the whole fight.
That's awesome.
Will we be playing tonight? I don't know. I might. I mean, currently I only have it for Xbox, so I don't know what you have it on. Um,
Yeah, we only
and
have
as
the
far as
demo.
the save transfer, I think all of your equipment and job class levels carry over. Um,
Everything carries over. So like basically, like I said a little earlier in the show, is you're downloading the game technically. Technically, you're
mhm.
downloading the game early, and then they're like, "Hey, we're gonna cut you off here until that's like when you buy a midnight release thing, and it's like you have to wait till so long. There's even in the top like you can play the full game at this point in time, and it has a countdown to it.
Yeah, it says
Um,
00 March 15th,
yeah. So
so midnight.
and I don't think you'll even have to. You'll probably have to install a day one update, and then
Mhm.
that's it. You have the game, so everything carries on over. Everything. Um, so that's pretty cool. So like you can. I don't even know. Can you? Is there a max level that you can do? Like, can you just keep repeating these missions and just keep leveling up, Vinny? Or
Well, job class max is level 30.
I wonder if
And
that's gonna
then
stop though. Like, if you can just keep playing this demo until the game comes out and you're already like maxed out all
right.
your jobs.
Um, I mean, I have most of my jobs maxed out, and then, but the only thing that isn't going up is my equipment level because you get to a point where the enemies just aren't dropping things higher than level 24.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense.
so your equipment level is probably going to continue to go up. Your job class level maxes out at 30,
Hmm.
unless the full game is going to add more to that.
Curious. Yeah, like if you hit a certain point in the story, and then they're like, "Okay, you've unlocked another
That
tree of jobs or something."
that might be Trial of the Dragon King.
Oh, well, that would be DLC stuff. But yeah,
Right.
some jobs are not available in the demo. Okay, no way. Thanks for clarifying that. I didn't know
hmm
that. Awesome. Um, and what else we got?
One other thing I want to say is
Yeah.
I want to love Ronin so much, but I don't know if maybe it's just not clicking with me, but
Yeah.
like the EI slash on it just is a little underwhelming for how long you need to charge it
You're
up
talking about like
and
where
then
he sheaths the
no,
blade.
that's unsheath. If you hold RB, you go into like this stance where you hold the sword out in front of you,
Uh-huh.
and then you have to wait for something to approach you, and then you can hit RB again to do an EI slash
Oh,
or
okay.
RT to do a different slash, which does a lot of damage, but it just ruins the pacing for me if I have to stand there and wait for something to approach me, and then if it
Yeah.
shoots something ranged at me, I just need to move, and it cancels out
You
the
canceled
stance.
out it, yeah. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Um,
basically like, I mean, it's a samurai or not samurai, but you can go to get to samurai from there, which is
right.
interesting. I'm curious
Which
of what samurai plays like.
hopefully more fast paced because Ronin just feels a little slow. Like
I
you
mean,
get
it
like
gives you
three.
that like that feel of an old samurai movie, like where you have to wait for your attack. I guess
Right.
let's just take the pacing and just put it to a halt if you want to be a Ronin or a samurai. I guess.
Right.
But yeah, yeah. Too bad. Yeah, pre-orders on physical copies don't give you early access. It is a little weird with the
Mhm.
pre-order system. I will agree. I'm not a fan of how Epic Games doesn't get it until 24 hours early. Um, so let's see. Using reinforcement or haste helps. Oh, dude, that was a thing. I'm going for a sage class. I'm close to getting sage, and when you become a sage, you can click in the L stick and swap between black mage and white mage.
Mhm.
Like
On the
that's gonna
fly.
be awesome. Like to be able to switch over to the white mage, cast some haste on you or a cure, switch back over to the black mage and use some damage. I can't wait to see how the sage plays.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's see what else. You guys have any other questions for us? Talking about Stranger of Paradise here.
Yeah. Before we close it up
Yep.
and pick somebody to raid, which there's not many people on right now. Legions is on.
Yeah, we can raid
Playing
legions.
Elden. Legions is on playing Elden Ring. Legions is pushing for partner. So if you guys could just once we raid him, if you guys could drop in there and give him a follow or something. I know he's pushing for Twitch partner and he's pushing hard. And he puts in a lot of time.
Fitz of Ray says, I'm not a big fan of the movement stick for the spell selector. When you get into the upper class stuff like black mage, because regular mage it's literally up, down, left, right. Those are your spells. But when you get into the black mage, you have a whole wheel of spells that you can do. And it can get a little. I will agree, it can get a little tricky. I never found myself feeling frustrated though. I guess I was just like, oh crap, I need to get to this one or something. But it was never to the point where I was like, ah, why can't I just get the spell I want? Um, but yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and close it out here. But if you guys have any questions, love to if you want to say anything. Are you on the fence? Are you on the fence after watching our preview here? Have we kind of convinced you? Maybe you came into it thinking like, oh man, this is going to be a Soulsborne, and then hopefully we've kind of like talked you out of that like mentality. And I
Mhm.
know we're also guilty of putting that mentality in your head, but it's not a Soulsborne. Let's like let's
It,
think of it as a more of a modern Final Fantasy.
it's
You know what I
way
mean?
more forgiving. Way
Way
more
more forgiving.
forgiving.
It's a modern action Final Fantasy game. Characters, in my opinion, is the most important aspect of a Final Fantasy. Would you guys agree? And what do you guys think of the quality of the characters in this game? Good
Um,
question. Very good question.
so yes, I agree. The characters are really important. You can kind of tell that from like the the success or lack for lack of a better word success of Final Fantasy 12, the lack thereof. Vaughn being one of the most least liked Final Fantasy characters. um so yes, I will agree that the characters are very important. But I I I like the dynamics between Jed, Ash, and Jack currently, where it's like you have Ash, who's like he's like very and I mean I think that would go along with his, I guess, canon job class, which I'm pretty sure would be Monk, because Monk is what he unlocks as his the memory class that he unlocks. And he has that like insightfulness of like he's like this. I mean, he's clearly huge, like he's this huge guy. He's obviously very strong, but he's like kind-hearted and like not fast to the punch.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jack is like the complete opposite,
And
where he's
loyal.
just
Yeah.
yeah, and he's extremely loyal and insightful. And then you have Jack, who's just like the opposite, where he's just like rage bound and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like he's basically Ash's polar opposite. And then you have Jed, who's kind of like, if these three people were to like mesh together, you would form like the personality of one human being. Like you have
Hmm.
somebody's rage, their kindness, and then their humor. And so I feel like the three of them together create your one main character.
Yeah.
And that's how I look at them.
And so far, and then you also throw Neon in the mix, which is like the skepticism, or like the not so sure about like chaos even exists or something like
He's
that.
very nihilistic.
There you go.
Like nothing really matters. It's
Besides,
like
yeah, she's definitely got that drive, like to like, she's got the drive that they share of like
mhm,
she wanted to kill chaos and found out like, oh well, I don't think it exists.
like
Um,
I don't think he exists, so nothing really
mhm.
matters anymore.
So you kind of get those personality. That is a really good point. As far as like, and I do agree with you, Legend. Like I do feel like characters are obviously one of the most important things in Final Fantasy for sure. And yeah, I mean, like we touched on a little bit during the show, I think that the bond is cool. I like that bro. I like the bros going on. Even throwing in Neon, which is one of my like I really quickly liked Neon in this game. As soon as she
Mhm,
was on in the game, I quickly was like, oh man, I want her in my party. I don't know why. I was just like, I like her in my party now because she's kind of got that like I'm gonna throw in a grounded character. You know, like this
mhm,
character feels like she's more of like you guys. Okay, just show me chaos is out there.
mhm,
Um, so I like that. But I also really enjoy that this game doesn't really. I don't know if it's on purpose or not. Honestly, that's the one thing that kind of gets me is I'm not sure if it's on purpose that the way that they've delivered these lines, the way that they're interrupting, like basically skipping the cutscene, like Audrey said on Twitter. You know, like
mhm,
they're basically like just saying, look, just I'm gonna cut you off mid thing and just say everything you just said was bullshit. I'm just gonna put my earpods in and go. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like, okay, I love that. It makes me laugh.
mhm,
I think so I think the characters so far are cool.
mhm.
And
But
Jack like basically going like every time like he's just talking about anything other than chaos. It's just funny to me.
and honestly, like if you don't like the characters, I think the way the game is laid out is would benefit people who don't like the characters because you know it's not so much it's obviously very story driven, but
Yeah.
it's mission driven too, to where you don't have to um I feel like you're not locked in a room with these people because you could just jump from like mission to mission, just keep redoing missions,
And
and
they're
it becomes
just as focused as you are, right? Like that was like
right.
that's the coolest thing. Like so, if you are one of those people that just want to go in and play the game, they want to as well.
Mhm,
But I think hopefully what I'm expecting is that these characters are, and then you will get attached to them, and then eventually you're going to care about what they're saying, and eventually you're going to care about what's going on, and I feel like that's what the game is doing right now. It's like I feel like
mhm,
it's setting the stage, but doing it as quickly as possible would get you into the action. The characters want to get into the actions. They want to do everything you want to do. They want to experience this game, and then hopefully we're gonna start seeing what we saw in the trailer of like, all of these deep moments that are happening. Um,
mhm.
and I think it's a little too soon to judge these characters right away. But from what we got from the first three missions, I'm in. I like it.
And one of the things I dislike most about Final Fantasy is once you've played Final Fantasy 7 for like, 15 years straight, and you know you start a new character or you start a new game,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I want to start after Midgar. Like
Oh,
or Final Fantasy 10, like I want to start after Kilika. Like I want to
yeah.
start where you get Orin and the game kind of opens up that way. This game kind of feels like you get thrown into it and you could just
You just keep going.
it right.
Yeah, and it works in its favor of like being a looter slasher, I guess if you want to call it.
Yeah.
So honestly, if that's the genre we want to put it, let's put it in the looters. Like it's more of a looter than a Souls. I wish I was there with you guys when it came to the characters. I'm jealous. Yeah, I mean, like let's be honest with you. Like let's be honest with you. The characters are not as like strong as a Final Fantasy mainline. Like I would never say like that these characters are going to be as impactful as a Final Fantasy 6 or a Final Fantasy 7 or 10 or 8 or whatever. Maybe, hopefully, but right now,
I mean, it is just the demo, but I would not say that the characters are the reason why you should play the game.
Not at the moment. Like for being
right.
like 3 missions in, yeah, obviously it's just about fun, and it really is. Vinny, is
we were making fun of the grunts too while we were playing. Like every so often, I would just hear Daniel go, like this, just making grunts.
I told Vinny when we're doing the podcast, if he's talking, I'm just gonna go.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're with you too. It's just we're trying to. Right.
It gets me smiling. I don't know. I guess maybe not for everyone, but maybe because you're going into it expecting like a Final Fantasy level drama.
Especially with an M rating, you kind of want some.
I kind of go with. I said it earlier in the show. Maybe you weren't here, Legend, but maybe you'll agree. I don't know. But like Final Fantasy V, right? Final Fantasy V it reminds me of that vibe where there's like there's a serious story going on, but there's also this like a heavy focus on comedy, or like I kind of get that vibe a little bit here. But I don't know, man. The grunts, even though I feel like they should be cringeworthy, for me I'm just smiling. I think this is great. I think it's great.
I started hysterically laughing when Frank Sinatra started playing. I was like, at first I thought it was just a trailer like decision, like let's throw My Way into the trailer. No, that's in the game. It's like what?
Yeah, my Way's in there. Yeah, well, be careful if you're streaming this. That kind of goes under the audio thing too. Like streamers, be careful because that does get you hit. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's just great. You go from Frank Sinatra to like a Limp Bizkit sound alike, and then you got like EDM renditions of old Final Fantasies going on, and like the characters are just out there having fun, being on a bro trip, but on a dedicated mission to kill chaos.
I like when you use the last potion and one of your teammates gets kind of like frustrated with you. They're like, dude, did you drink the last one?
Yeah, save one for us.
Yeah, right. Like they do get a little aggravated with you.
Yeah. I noticed that you can't use them on your teammate, which was interesting. You can't use a potion on your teammate.
And I also noticed that when they use potions, it doesn't take from my.
It doesn't deplete from your stock. Yeah.
Right. So they can just keep like healing themselves. So
even though they do say that, like it's not like you're actually taking it from them.
Right. But that would be that would add difficulty if it was a shared potion pool between your other characters, because then I feel like they wouldn't just be able to tank the boss.
And honestly,
definitely.
Square Enix, I know you're listening right now because you. No, but like. My suggestion for that would be I literally instinctively did this. I held down the down button. Like you just press down to pop the potion. Well, I held down the button, hopefully that it would bring up like a wheel. Like just like how you use your magic. If you can like hold down the button and then bring up a wheel and select Jed, Ash, or whatever, or Neon or whatever. That'd be cool. And then you can like use it to throw it on your teammate. So if they did get rid of like having teammates being able to heal themselves, or just sharing your stock and then telling them like don't use my potion, like use the Gambit system kind of in a way. Like you can tell your teammates not to use restoratives, Kingdom Hearts style, I guess too. Honestly, don't notice the grunts. Yeah, I mean like I just noticed the grunts. I meant for the example of when Princess Sarah was talking to him, and he was like audibly frustrated with her. I thought that was funny. I just thought that was funny.
Audibly frustrated.
Yeah, just audibly frustrated, like, like I'm trying to go kill Chaos Woman. um, yeah. So what else we got? Not for everyone. I'm sure the crowd loves it. Yeah, man, Legend. I'm glad you gave it a shot, though. You know, I'm glad you gave it a shot. Hopefully, I don't know. It sounds like you kind of made up your mind, which is fine.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, maybe have you tried it on a? Did you like the gameplay? Is it just the story for you? Did you like the
Well,
gameplay?
they said that they liked the combat. They said outside of the combat, I have nothing nice to say. So I
Got
mean,
you. Okay.
at,
So it is indeed the story. So
yeah. So
yeah,
at least I mean, if you can get to, if you can, I don't want to say suffer through it, but if you can, get through it, to get
yeah.
to end game content, it
Like
seems
maybe
like it's
you
just
don't
gonna
like it
be.
now. Maybe you don't like it now, but like maybe watch our full review because we're gonna do. Me and Vinny are gonna do a detailed review of the full game, and we're gonna talk about
Mhm.
story. We won't spoil anything for you. Maybe we'll do like a spoiler-free review, and then maybe we'll just do a full-on like talk about what we played. Um, but yeah, I mean like we were talking about, maybe they just want to get into the game just like you do. Maybe they just want to get to the story because it sounds like they do, like cut people off, skipping cutscenes and stuff themselves. The characters are doing it. Uh,
Right.
like
So,
I said, man,
bullshit.
yeah, maybe you will grow attached to them throughout time, and then like the story will start catching, and then hopefully that's what they're going for. I mean, this is a
Mhm.
Final Fantasy game after all. Like I'm sure there's going to be like this crazy story going on, with emotional depth and everything.
Hopefully, and I
Yeah.
mean, some of the boss fights that we saw, Merilith looks pretty unforgiving. The Lich, I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure it was the Lich that I was seeing. He looks really fast. He phases
Dude,
in and
we're
phases out right
talking
in front of
about
you. Like,
that's the thing, man. Maybe we haven't even gotten to the one of our gripes, a small gripe, was that a game is not too hard, not as hard as it should be on hard mode.
thought
Dude,
it was too
maybe
easy.
maybe when we get to freaking Merilith, we're sitting over here begging them not to do any more increase of the difficulty. Maybe we're just like, okay,
Right.
you know what? It's fine that they have their own potions. I need mine.
Right.
It's fine. You know what, Vinny? I need to help Vinny. You don't need to add team attack. It's fine. Like,
Right.
maybe that's
So,
how it'll go. Thanks,
but
Legend, for yeah. Tune into the review. I definitely appreciate that.
mhm.
Um, yeah. So, all right, I think we're good to wrap it up now. If you guys don't have any more
All right.
questions, I think we're good. Vinny, thank you so much for providing that full detailed review. It says used Raid Legion's game. Is that going to start like soon or something? There it is. I think it
Oh,
said
wait,
it right
wait.
there.